Have you ever felt that your faith was too polite? That the person you are on Sunday morning, with the quiet prayers and the neat affirmations, is a stranger to the person who lies awake at 3 a.m., wrestling with doubt, anger, or a profound sense of divine silence? We are taught, often implicitly, that a good faith is an agreeable faith, that questions are a sign of weakness and anger at God is a form of blasphemy. And so, we learn to perform. We compartmentalize. We silence the most honest, raw, and desperate parts of our soul, fearing they make us unworthy. There's a story buried in the heart of the Old Testament that shatters this entire paradigm of polite religion. It is a strange, raw, and deeply physical story, and it serves as a divine permission slip for every person who has ever felt the need to not just speak to God, but to struggle with Him. This is the story of Jacob at the Jabbok, a story that suggests that the most profound transformations do not happen in quiet submission, but in a tenacious, all-night wrestle. To understand the significance of this midnight encounter, we must first understand the man, Jacob. And we must be honest, Jacob is not a simple hero. For most of his life, he is what we might call a hustler. His very name in Hebrew, Yaakov, is linked to the word for heel, carrying the connotation of a supplanter, a trickster, one who trips others up to get ahead. And his biography reads like a masterclass in cunning. He famously cheats his impulsive, brutish twin brother, Esau, out of both his birthright and his blessing, using deception and manipulation. Forced to flee for his life from his brother's wrath, he goes to the land of his uncle, Laban, where he meets his match. What follows are 20 years of a chess match between two master manipulators, as Jacob out-hustles the hustler, acquiring vast wealth, wives, and children. Jacob's entire identity is built on his own cleverness, his ability to strategize, to control, to win. He is a man who has never received a blessing he didn't, in some way, take for himself. But now, after 2 decades, he is on his way home. And the life he has built is about to collide with a past he can no longer outrun. He receives word that his brother Esau, the brother he cheated, the brother who wanted to kill him, is coming to meet him, accompanied by 400 men. This is not a welcome party. This is an army. And for the first time in his life, Jacob's cleverness fails him. He is paralyzed by a primal, existential terror. The hustler has run out of moves. This is the psychological state in which our story begins. It is the dark night of the soul. In a panic, Jacob divides his family and his flocks into 2 camps, a desperate strategic hedge against total annihilation. He sends wave after wave of gifts ahead of him, attempting to appease the brother he wronged. And then, as the night deepens, he does something extraordinary. He sends his wives, his children, his entire household across the river Jabbok. And he remains behind, utterly and completely alone in the darkness. This is a critical moment. He has shed everything that defines him: his family, his wealth, his status. He is stripped down to nothing but his own terror and his own history. It is in this state of total vulnerability, in the pitch black of his darkest night, that the encounter happens. The text says, "A man wrestled with him till daybreak." Who is this man? The text is famously ambiguous. Jacob himself will later identify him as divine, saying, "I saw God face to face." But for the sake of our psychological exploration, let's hold that ambiguity. This man is the ultimate other. He is the externalization of everything Jacob has been wrestling with internally his entire life. His conscience, his past, his fear, his very identity. It is the ultimate, unavoidable confrontation. And it is not a debate. It is not a negotiation. It is a physical struggle, a raw, gritty, desperate grapple in the dirt and darkness. The text doesn't give us a play-by-play, but our bodies understand this kind of struggle. Imagine the exhaustion, the straining of muscles, the burning in the lungs, the sweat and the dust. This is an all-night affair. It is a metaphor for the long, draining, and often fruitless-feeling struggles of our own lives. The years spent wrestling with an addiction. The decades of grappling with a childhood trauma. The long, dark nights spent fighting with a faith that no longer seems to make sense. It is a struggle of endurance. Who will give up first? As dawn approaches, it becomes clear that Jacob will not give up. He is no match for this divine opponent, yet he refuses to be defeated. His opponent, seeing his tenacity, does something that changes the nature of the fight. He touches the socket of Jacob's hip, and it is wrenched. He permanently wounds him. He marks him. This is a crucial detail. The struggle is not without cost. A true transformative encounter with the divine or with the deepest truth of ourselves will leave a mark. It changes us in a fundamental way. The stranger then says, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." And here, in this moment of exhaustion and injury, Jacob speaks the most important line of his life. He, the man who stole his first blessing, now utters a raw, desperate, beautiful demand. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." This is the turning point of his entire existence. For the first time, he is not trying to trick his way into a blessing. He is not trying to manipulate or control. He is clinging with every last ounce of his strength in his wounded state and making a demand born of pure, tenacious desire. He is being utterly, brutally honest about what he needs. He is finished with the hustle. He is done with performing. He is simply holding on for dear life, demanding a real, true, and freely given grace. If you have ever been in a place of such desperation, where all polite prayers fail and all that is left is a raw cry for help, a demand for a blessing, you understand this moment. It is the prayer of the soul at the end of its rope. Acknowledge this shared human experience with a like on this video. The stranger's response is not a bolt of lightning. It is a question. "What is your name?" This is not a request for information. It is the most profound therapeutic question one can ask. He is asking, "Who are you? Who have you been up until this very moment?" And for the first time, Jacob has to speak his name without any angle, without any hustle. He says, "Yaakov. I am the trickster. I am the supplanter. I am the man who has spent his life grasping at the heels of others." It is a full confession, an admission of the identity that has brought him to this point of terror and desperation. And it is only after this honest confession that the blessing can be given. The stranger says, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Let's unpack this. This is the heart of the entire story. The name Israel means he who struggles with God. Think about what is happening here. His new identity, his blessing, is not the cessation of struggle. It is the canonization of struggle. His very name is now defined by the wrestle. God doesn't say, "You will no longer be a striver. Now you will be a man of peace." He says, "Your defining characteristic, the thing that will be your new identity, is the fact that you struggle, that you grapple, that you hold on." The struggle was not a sign of Jacob's flawed character that needed to be erased. The struggle was the point. It was the very process that forged his new, authentic self. This is a radical theology. It suggests that our deepest, most honest, and even most angry struggles with God are not something to be ashamed of. They are, in fact, the very arena of our transformation. They are the moments when our faith moves from a received, polite tradition to a tenacious, hard-won, personal reality. And then there is the final, beautiful detail. As the sun rises, Jacob was left alone, and he was limping because of his hip. He got the blessing, and he was left with a limp. This is the mark of a true transformation. We do not emerge from our most profound spiritual encounters unscathed. We are changed. We are marked. The limp is not a sign of defeat. It is the badge of honor from the fight. It is the ever-present physical reminder of the night he wrestled with God and survived. It is the sign that his strength is no longer in his own cleverness, but in a new, vulnerable dependence. Every day for the rest of his life, every step he took, that limp would remind him of who he truly was. Not Jacob the trickster, but Israel, the one who struggled with God and was blessed. This ancient story speaks directly into the heart of our modern, sanitized faith. It gives us permission to be angry, to be confused, to have doubts that feel like a physical fight in the dark. It tells us that God is not a fragile deity who is offended by our questions or our desperation. On the contrary, the story of Jacob suggests that the divine might just be waiting for us in the dark, by the river of our greatest fear, ready to engage with our most honest, desperate, clinging selves. The goal is not to win the fight against God. Jacob certainly didn't. The goal is to refuse to let go, to stay in the struggle, to hold on through the long, dark night until the dawn comes, and we are left blessed, renamed, and walking with the beautiful, holy limp of a faith that has become real. So, what is the Jabbok River in your own life? What is the unavoidable confrontation you have been running from? What is the honest, raw, and perhaps angry prayer you have been too polite to utter? And what if, instead of being a sign of your failing faith, that very struggle is the invitation to your own transformation, the place where you too might be given a new name? This is the kind of question we are not afraid to ask at Soul Scripts. This is the kind of wrestling we are here for. If you are also on this journey of seeking an honest, tenacious faith, then you are in the right place. Subscribe and join the conversation as we continue to explore these profound stories together.